of Trade Unions, SAFTU, has rejected the Labour Laws Amendment Bill. According to the Federation, if passed, the amendments would threaten the livelihoods of workers. The proposed amendment to the Labour Relations Act were given the go-ahead by social partners at National Economic Development Labour Council, SAFTU. SAFTU says Section 77 will affect the workers' rights to strike, and formal hearings will also cease to exist if the employer wants to dismiss employees. To discuss this, we are joined by SAFTU national spokesperson Newton Masuku. Thank you so much for being here, Newton. Can you bring us up to speed with what really is going on between SAFTU and, of course, the mentions, their concerns, so far so good, concerning this story?
Our apologies. I'm Mametlwe Sebei. I'm the National Executive Committee member of South African Federation of Trade Unions and the president of Guwusa, which is an affiliate of SAFTU. Yes, this, these amendments are rejected by ourselves as a union, as a federation, because they want to roll back all the gains that we've made in terms of furtherance of the workers' rights. Some of the things, for instance, is that it will be easy to dismiss workers without any form of hearing. They want to entrench and further extend the lifeline of casual labor, where in terms of the current legislation which was fought for by workers in the past decades, you cannot employ a casual labor, that is a worker on short-term contract or a worker on labor broking, for more than 3 months. They now want to extend that to 6 months, meaning only after 6 months, a worker employed as permanent or as short-term contract worker or on labor broker will be deemed the permanent employee of a client company, or of course, in the case of the state, of the organ or department of the state. They also want to now reverse the gains insofar as minimum wages, which are already appalling at somewhere between 4,500 to 5,000 rand. They want to say it must be calculated on a cost to company, meaning what will then happen is that where at the moment employers, if you are working 20 days a week, 8 hours a day, and 20 days a month, 8 hours a day, you are most likely to end up with 4,500, and if more, somewhere between that and 5,000. You are going to end up with 2,500, 3,000, because you'll be deducting from that minimum wage a deduction for unemployment insurance, a deduction from compensation or for injury and diseases, which is a statutory insurance as well, a deduction for provident funds, which are currently not calculated. They also want to limit instances at which you can be referring, the case of unfair dismissals or of unfair labor practices. So they want to exclude demotions. They want to exclude, the unfair promotion, even in case of where a person has legitimate expectation of being promoted. They can't challenge that in courts and all the things and so on. So these are things we reject, and we say is part of an onslaught against the working class that this government of neoliberal unity, masquerading as government of national unity, want to impose on us, and we totally reject that.
All right. Mr. Sebei, what potential impacts do you foresee, especially for the rejection of these laws? What do you think it would do to the economy on a broader perspective?
I mean, the reality is that this, is another attempt at redistributing the wealth of this country from the working class, from the poor, to the tiny elite of rich people who have monopolized the private ownership of the economy, right? You already have, under this black majority, democracy, the most unequal society, because of distribution of wealth and income. And you have a situation wherein, one of the CEOs of the top mining companies, that is BHP Billiton, that is mining in this country, has earned 234 million rand, for instance, in income, at the same time as the worker on minimum wage is obviously getting this very pitiful amount that has absolutely no relation to the cost, of living at the present moment. The result of which is that it will take a worker on a minimum wage, on average 114 lives, in each of which life will be working 40 years without interruption, just for them to be able to earn what the CEO has earned in 1 year. That is a level of inequalities we are dealing with. That is also affecting, obviously, the cost of food, which is, in excess of minimum wages. The cost of food itself is estimated at 5,270 rand and more. The cost of transport at 2,000 rand a month. The cost of accommodation and housing, 2,500 to 4,000. And I'm not speaking about workers staying in suburban mansions or even townhouses that are decent. I'm talking about workers in backyard rooms in townships in this country. And of course, a single, flats in deliberated sections of the city. This is the reality of the cost of living, which the current minimum wage bears no relation to. But instead of them increasing the minimum wage, which we demand 15,000 rand minimum wage, which is almost 3 times more than what they are actually having at the present moment. They now want to reduce even the pitiful amount that we reject. And this coming alongside privatizations of the ports, privatizing of many public services that this government want to carry out, as well as further neoliberal restructuring that we see outsourcing and more precarious employment of many workers and commodification of basic services. It will escalate the cost of living to another catastrophic levels where our people are going to be plunged in horrific levels of poverty, hunger, and starvation we are seeing in many parts of South Africa, where, in Eastern Cape, a woman killed herself and 8, I think, many children, all of her children, and because of the level of debt she had.
All right, Mr.
And she was
Sebei.
discovered.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, you've expatiated on the economy and what this would mean, especially looking at their demands. Most importantly, you've also touched on the impact from the cost of living and so on and so forth. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, Mametlwe Sebei, who is the Guwusa president. And apologies, I initially had referred to you to as the SAFTU national spokesperson, although we're hoping he joins us later on in the course of other news bulletin. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right.